What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video here on the channel. Today is Saturday, February 25th. F1 Drive to Survive Season 5 just released yesterday. I binge watched the whole thing yesterday, episode 1 through episode 10. I'm gonna give you my honest reviews as an F1 fan on F1 Drive to Survive. Should you watch it? Is it worth it? There's only one way to find out. I've watched every episode of Drive to Survive. It's honestly what's gotten me into F1 as much as I am. But I was an F1 fan back in the day. I remember in 2012, I remember the days of Vettel's dominance and Mercedes coming back to life and all those fun days. But yeah, I'm gonna give you my honest thoughts on Drive to Survive Season 5. And we're gonna go episode by episode. Was it good? Is it worth it? And what happened in each. So, if you don't want spoilers, I highly recommend you skip to the end. I might have it sectioned episode by episode by episode, so if you want to just skip to the end, go right ahead. I can't stop you from doing that. But yeah, let's get straight into the video. Episode 1 mainly goes into detail about the new cars, the new regulations, how much is going to change up the grid, who they think is going to be the quickest teams, pre-season testing, and all that fun stuff. The main team they kind of focus on in this episode is Haas and a little bit of Ferrari too, because I mean, at the beginning of the episode, you've seen that scene where Gunther and Mattia were driving through Italy, I think it was, and they go cherry picking or grape picking, one or the other. But honestly, it was a pretty funny scene watching them drive through Italy in this little cracked up little car, and then driving through the mountains and them laughing along. It was a pretty funny scene, I can't lie. But and then yeah, after that it focuses on preseason testing, which is where they kind of focus on Haas more, because they kind of talk about the whole Kevin Magnussen debacle, which I think is a good idea, considering Nikita Mazepin got fired, and then they bring in Magnussen at the beginning to replace Mazepin like 2 weeks before the season starts, and then he goes and gets a top 5 in Bahrain when Magnussen didn't even have half the testing that the other teams got. So I think it's a good base to build off of, and then I think they do a good job of balancing what is it called, like the story of like who they want to focus on, because they want to focus on Magnussen and Haas and their great result in Bahrain, but they also want to focus on who's at the front of the field with these new regulations, these new cars. And I think they did a good job of showing the fight of Leclerc and Verstappen that race, and what happened to Red Bull at the end. There's an amazing shot at the end of the race. It's when Perez's car spun around. I don't know who's seen it and who hasn't, but Perez is like, his car's like spun at the end of turn 1, and he's walking into the car looking back, and the two Ferraris go past. It's like, oh, what a scene, what a scene. But yeah, no, they also look into Ferrari's victories. So Ferrari's victory that day in Bahrain. So yeah, no, overall I think it was a pretty good episode. I would say I'd give it about an 8.5 out of 10. It could be better, still some room for improvement, but overall, episode 1, good episode. Episode 2 I find is another interesting one. In episode 2 they take a deep dive into Mercedes, Toto Wolff, Lewis Hamilton, George Russell, what they were going through with the new regulations, and they also give a good insight on Lewis and what he was going through, hearing all the retirement rumors coming back after Abu Dhabi 2021. I think this is probably one of the better episodes, to be honest, when they talk about Mercedes. They also show a really good insight of when Toto Wolff was really pissed at all the other team principals for the porpoising and all that stuff. My thoughts on all that, if you've seen it, my thoughts on all that are Toto's, he's kind of being a sore loser in that situation. I mean, he does have a point. The cars need to be fixed, because you saw what the cars needed to be fixed because you saw what Lewis Hamilton was like after Baku. The man was really shaken up after all the bouncing and shit going down that 2 kilometer straight. And I would be too. Just imagine you're sitting here driving your car, and you go every time you're on a straightaway. So it's like, I see his point, but like, come on, like saying that you're trying to kill drivers is a bit out of order. Plus, majority of the porpoising was just a Mercedes problem. So, not much to say there. It's more about the beginning of the season, so they don't really talk about Russell's win too much, or how Mercedes built on towards later in the year. But overall, I think this gave a really good insight into what the mindset was of Mercedes when they weren't fighting at the front. And even it talks about when Hamilton got lapped by Verstappen in Imola, when he was stuck behind Gasly. It's an interesting watch, episode 2 for sure. So episode 2 I'd probably give a 9 out of 10. It wasn't perfect, but very good episode to say the least. I've enjoyed the season so far, I must say. Episode 3. As a Tifosi, this was not a fun one for me. Matter of Principle, it's titled. I think you can tell where I'm going with this, but it starts off at Miami when what happened in Miami when they got the 1-2. They were on pole, and they kind of blew the strategy when the safety car came out, and they would have had a chance to attack the Red Bulls of Verstappen and Perez if he would have stayed out. But yeah, no, and then it also talks a bit about Silverstone as well. And as a diehard Charles Leclerc fan, I still have PTSD of that race. But I'm even looking back at that race. If Leclerc couldn't win, I'm glad Carlos Sainz did, because I love me a bit of the smooth operator, if I must say so myself. But Silverstone, it talks about how Sainz got off to a great start during the weekend. In between, it also talks a lot about the struggles of Ferrari and how they gave away so many points. It even brings like Christian Horner, Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, all those kinds of people, and they're saying like Ferrari have made a lot of mistakes this year, and even like Christian Horner says like now's the time for us to win, go out and capitalize and make them look like dummies pretty much. But yeah, no, the main 2 races that they focus on are Miami and Silverstone, which are probably 2 of the better races for Ferrari, because I mean, like, even still, like, you'd think Carlos Sainz winning at Silverstone, that's awesome for Ferrari, but like it shows you after the race like how much people just said like, yeah, Ferrari won, but they won with the wrong car. They should have let Leclerc win because he's fighting for the championship, and Verstappen had an issue that race, so Leclerc should have been in first. But excuse me, I liked Mattia's view on it all. That's probably the first and last time I'll ever say that. But at Ferrari, there should be no number 1 driver. There should be 2 drivers that are able to fight for a championship, and as long as they don't take each other out, have at it. And I do love that view. I do wish every F1 team based their view off of that. But personally, me being a Tifosi drags this one down a little bit, but I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. It was great to see the insights of Ferrari and what they were thinking and Carlos Sainz's win, but wasn't a great episode, but could have been better. I think, yeah, it was a good episode. Good episode. Episode 4, another painful one. Mick Schumacher was the focus of this episode. It started off with Mick at the beginning of the season in Jeddah when he had that crash in qualifying at Saudi Arabia, which was a huge hit, and glad he's okay after that. And what it mainly, to focus on the main point, it mainly talks about all of Mick's accidents, and it shows insight of Gunther saying, like, he even has conversations with Kevin at points saying, like, who do you think we get as a teammate? Ricciardo, Hülkenberg, Gasly, Drugovich, any of those guys, really. But yeah, no, it was painful to see that episode, because, I mean, who doesn't love Mick Schumacher? Like, let's be real, if there's one driver from last season other than Ricciardo that I'd love to see back on the grid, it would be Mick Schumacher. Some people will say Seb, but I think Seb just let Seb enjoy his retirement. Let Seb have his peace. He deserves it. Maybe Seb will come back and be like a team owner someday. Who knows? That's describes Sebastian Vettel in a nutshell. But I'm getting off topic here. It talks about his crash. It talks about Mick's crash in Monaco. Where else did he crash? I'm trying to remember like the whole season off the top of my brain right now, but whatever. But the point is, it shows all of his struggles up until Silverstone, where he starts at the back. He makes his way through the big crash at turn 1, and he gets all the way up to 7th place? Yeah, well, he fought for Verstappen for 7th place, and he finished 8th, and 8th was his first points finish in F1 at Silverstone. And that was when we all seen the real Mick Schumacher, and I thought that was gonna be enough, and I thought that was gonna give him his future, like keep him that seat for next year in F1. But after Austria, it just kind of went back to the same, and yeah. Oh, I miss Mick already. But the fact that Mick's such a lovable character is going to drag my rating down a little bit on this episode. I'm going to give it another 7.5 out of 10. It was a good in-detail episode, but yeah, it just hurts to see Mick Schumacher go through all that, you know? Such a good guy. Episode number 5 was titled Pardon My French, and the title's pretty self-explanatory. It goes into the insight of Alpine F1. Alpine F1 team, as you know, 2022, Fernando Alonso, Esteban Ocon, team principal Otmar Szafnauer. They went into 2022 with high hopes. They thought they could maybe challenge the big 3, maybe get up there if they could. And yeah, no, Alpine were an interesting watch. I mean, you could even see like at the beginning of the season and how close the 3 of them were. Even Oscar Piastri, they all seemed to have a really good bond. But then Sebastian Vettel retired, so that sparked the whole curveball, and it's funny to watch the inside of like them wishing Alonso a happy birthday and Otmar saying, "I'm a man of my word, Alonso, you'll get the contract by so and so date," and Alonso's just like, "Just as long as it's not September," I'm pretty sure he said. But then a few days later, it's announced that Alonso is replacing Sebastian Vettel at Aston Martin. So Otmar says, "Well, we're gonna get Oscar in the car." But turns out Oscar's got a contract with McLaren, and Alpine don't know about it, and that sparks the big legal debacle. I could really edit a cool sound effect on that, but I wish I knew how to do that. But yeah, the big legal debacle. Ooh. Yeah, no, it pretty much angers the hell out of Otmar. Zach Brown's just kind of laughing in his face at it all, and you get the announcement of Ricciardo's going to be leaving McLaren. You get the announcement of Piastri's joining McLaren, and you are left with an open Alpine seat. And then that sets up episode 6. Episode 6 kind of starts off with a team meeting debrief of, well, not a team meeting, like a meeting between Otmar and Zach Brown, the team principals of McLaren and Alpine, respectively, and they're talking about how they want to sue Oscar and take it to court over the contract debacle. But when Alpine come to their senses and just kind of calm down, it shows that they kind of are looking at 2 options. They're looking at Pierre Gasly or Daniel Ricciardo. But as some of us may remember from previous seasons, Daniel Ricciardo used to drive for Alpine, at the time Renault, and left them out on a hinge for McLaren. And that doesn't leave a good note in the employee's mouth. And it takes us to Zandvoort. I should mention, episode 5 mainly took place with Alpine. It mainly took place in France and Hungary. So in episode 6, they take us to Spa for a bit. It wasn't much about Spa, and it also took us to Zandvoort, the Dutch Grand Prix. And the main focus on who was having the better drive, Gasly or Ricciardo. To put it short to you, Gasly finished 11th, Ricciardo finished 18th. Otmar said, "We want Pierre Gasly. He's a new, fresh start for the team. We want Pierre. He's fast, he's young, he's quick. Give us Pierre." And an all-French lineup for 2023, a good team principal. I think Alpine are going to be a really strong fit for 2023, but that's a topic for another video I've already posted. But Alpine, this episode is going to get I'd say an 8.5. It was interesting to see them looking at like their options essentially, and I think this episode did a really good job just showing the raw emotion and feeling that we would have never seen without Netflix, of like, say, the pain, like that embarrassment and anger from Otmar of announcing Piastri even though he'd already had a contract with McLaren but he didn't know, and all this stuff. So if I'm gonna recommend like 2 episodes to watch so far, definitely watch 5 and 6, because that whole Alpine McLaren debacle, it's a great watch, I can't lie. Episode 7, we go to Red Bull and Sergio Perez, mainly the beginning of the season. It starts off with Christian Horner talking about like Checo hasn't had a good string of results. Basically just copy paste everything about the Red Bull second driver for the last ever since Ricciardo left. So like 2018, copy paste the same thing he said about Gasly and Albon. He said that about Checo at the beginning of 2022, and he said he hasn't been performing up to Max's level, blah blah blah. So then we go to Monaco. We start off in qualifying where, as we know, Perez spins out, has been accused of spinning on purpose, but that's not, well, it could be the case, I don't really know. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't, that's a topic for another day. But the main thing is Checo spun in qualifying, gets 3rd, the Ferraris are 1-2, talks about how difficult the Ferraris will be to beat on Sunday, and it takes a good dive into like Checo's life, how much he loves his wife and kids, how much he's dedicated to the sport, how happy he is in F1, and what he thinks of the sport, and all that good stuff. So it's definitely a good episode in my opinion. I like Checo. I do think he's a good character to have in F1. It obviously talks about his lows at the beginning of the season, then his highest of highs of winning in Monaco, and yeah, that's pretty much it. They talk about how he got announced for another 2 years at Red Bull. Excuse me. Oh my god, I need to cut that out. If I don't have a laugh at it, I don't care. But yeah, no, it talks about Checo getting his high in Monaco, as I've said, and yeah, not a bad episode, but not a great in detail one sort of thing. I'd probably give this one an 8 out of 10. I enjoyed seeing Checo win at Monaco. Too bad Ferrari decided to throw it in the bin that day. But other than that, good episode. Episode 8. Come on, phone, get in my pocket. There we are. Episode 8. It talks about the main focus is AlphaTauri, Yuki Tsunoda, and it's mainly based on the latter part of the season because, well, Japan is Yuki Tsunoda's last race. Japan's in the latter part of the season, and Yuki Tsunoda's home race is the Japanese Grand Prix. Pretty self-explanatory. I figured they would want to follow Yuki around at Suzuka, but the main thing this episode is about is Yuki and AlphaTauri. It talks about how Yuki felt with Pierre leaving, with Nick de Vries coming in next year to be his teammate, how tight the bond is between Pierre and Yuki, and yeah, how much the Japanese fans wanted to make him a rock star in Japan, and like I think it's a really good analysis of like how Yuki how he was able to cope with that pressure of everyone just wanting the best for him, like in the race, and always wanting to talk to him, and being able to drive in a car after doing all that media, all that attention, blah 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 blah. That's a lot on a person. I think this episode really gives a great insight to it all. Yuki finished 13th at the Japanese Grand Prix in an absolutely rain-soaked race, and chances are if he wasn't in an AlphaTauri, he probably would have done a lot better, but it is what it is. And then after that, we go, where did we go after that? Oh yeah, we went to Coda, and it talks about Yuki coming up, getting towards the edge of the points, and he makes some mistakes along the way. I can't remember if he gets in the points or not that race, and he might have got a top 10, but I honestly can't remember. That's kind of sad, but yeah, no, I think he might have gotten beaten out by Zhou for the points finish in Coda. But yeah, no, this is a good in-depth episode in my opinion. I mean, they're kind of turning Yuki into one of the main characters now. He does got a pretty likable university personality, to be fair to him. But yeah, for the Yuki episode, I'm probably going to give it I'll give it an 8.5 out of 10. I think it was a good episode. I feel like they're trying to push Yuki down everybody's throats a little bit, but other than that, good stuff. Episode 9, another fun one, Over the Limit it is called. I think we know what this one's all about. Red Bull breaching the cost cap. There's some things I like and I don't like about this episode. I mean, I think it could have went a little bit more in depth instead of just Christian Horner saying, we went $400,000 over in spending mealtime for families, and I think everybody's accusations are out of order and shameful and all this stuff. I feel like it could have been a little bit more in depth than that. I mean, it's still great to see the perspective of Christian Horner, Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez in that whole situation, because they're the main guys at Red Bull. You didn't really hear much out of Helmut Marko this series, which is probably for the better, to be honest. But yeah, no, the focus of the episode is Singapore when Checo wins, and it also talks about Coda when Verstappen. Well, actually, before that, it talks about how the founder of Red Bull Racing and all that died the night before Coda, and then it goes and talks about how Red Bull went and won it also talks about Suzuka in Japan. It also talks about how Max won the title at Suzuka, and it also talks about Coda, as I've said, and it talks about how Max battled to get past Hamilton and win the race, and eventually get Red Bull their Constructors' Championship as well. So, it's if you're a Red Bull fan, you'll really like this episode, because it talks about how they were on the bottom. No one wanted anything for them. They just want to see them fail and all that fun stuff, and they come out and win after being dragged down all season. But yeah, no, I think if you're a Red Bull fan, you'll love this episode. And even if you're not a Red Bull fan, I think you'll kind of like it, but this is definitely one for the Red Bull fans, that's for sure. I'll probably give it an 8 out of 10. Not amazing, but definitely a good episode in my opinion. So episode 10, it's all about Abu Dhabi pretty much. The main things they talk about is the fight between Ferrari and Mercedes for second in Constructors, and the fight between Alpine and McLaren for fourth in Constructors. So, it essentially just talks about the race, doesn't go into like crazy heavy deep hit. Why did I just kick my tripod? Sorry about that. It doesn't go into crazy heavy detail, but it It explains what you need to know, shows it, and then that's a wrap. Here's the cars for next year. Here's what they're all saying about 2023. Vegas. Woo, Las Vegas, oh my god. And yeah, that's essentially it. to keep it quite frank, that is it. But to be fair, I do like this episode. I mean, the fight between Ferrari and Mercedes is definitely kind of the more interesting one. I feel like they focus a lot more on constructors than drivers' points, though, because I felt like the Leclerc and Perez battle for second in the championship was pretty well unheard of. And I mean, call me biased all you want. I am a ride or die Charles Leclerc fan, but they just didn't even mention that whole fight with Perez, and that came down to the wire pretty much. They could have hyped up Perez driving up to Leclerc on fresh tires and almost getting past him a few times. Like, they could have hyped that up amazingly, but oh well, that's just my opinion. It talks about the highs of Alpine and Ferrari that episode, but also showing the lows of Mercedes and McLaren. But overall, kind of mid episode. Wasn't great, but yeah, I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10, to be honest. Could have been better, could have been a lot worse. And there we have it. That is Drive to Survive Series 5 in 2022. We call that quits. Overall, good season. I'd probably say 8.5 out of 10. Big improvement on last year, in my opinion, so good on Netflix. They listened. There's still room for improvement, but overall, good job. Looking forward to next year. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you thought of Drive to Survive Season 5 in the comments down below. I'm interested to hear and see your point of view on it all. But anyways, it's been a pleasure having your view again, as always. Make sure to follow me on all my social medias if you want to keep up to date with me and my personal life. And other than that, take care. Until next time.